ICT Functional Skills, Excel VLOOKUP. Topics you need to know. So you need to know a bit about the VLOOKUP function. You need to know about its uses. We're going to look at some examples. Some supporting points for the VLOOKUP function. And the exact and near match when it comes to the VLOOKUP function. Okay, so we're going to look at the VLOOKUP function. Now we've got two examples we're going to look at here, and one is going to use the false VLOOKUP and the other one's going to use the true VLOOKUP. Now I've already got an example here so you can see the VLOOKUP working, and we're just going to break that down. And just so you know, the VLOOKUP is related to the lookup function and also the HLOOKUP function, and the V in this instance stands for vertical, and that means that my VLOOKUP is going to allow me to vertically look up this client code in this table to then return a certain value across from there, in this instance in the fourth column. Now, so it doesn't have to be the beginning of this table, but the client code does have to be at the beginning of the range I want to use. So in this case the client code is at the beginning of the table, and we count across. So the column, the thing I want to bring back, i.e. the email, is going to be 1, 2, 3, fourth column. And we need to bear that in mind when we create the VLOOKUP. And we can see here, the VLOOKUP is broken down, so you've got equals, as normal, the function name, the opening brackets, A2 is the client code in this instance we want to look up, F1 to I11 is the table range in which we'll find the client code at the beginning, column 4, or number 4 here, is representing when it finds that, what I mentioned just now, it's in the fourth column along from where it finds the client code. And the false basically says if you can't find this client code, then don't try and return anything else. And I'll explain that in more detail later. Now, so I've got an example here. I'm going to recreate it for this client code just here. So when I go to Formulas, Insert Function, now I can see VLOOKUP here. If I could type it in here and then go to find it. I'm going to click OK. Excel gives me a dialog box, and you may have seen this before, but it breaks down all the requirements for the function so I can easily create it. So what's the value that I want to look up in the table? Is this value just here? What is the table array? Make sure I click in here and I select table. I mentioned the column index number, so again from where the client code starts. So it doesn't have to be at the beginning, as long as the thing I'm looking up is the beginning of my range. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, so it's the fourth column. And then I've got this note here, which basically is a logical check. And for it to be an exact match, to only return something if it finds the client code, I need to put in false. Okay, and you can already see here, previewed, it thinks it's found a result for me. And if we check now, A07, A007, we look across, and that's the email, and it's found the email I was looking for. I click OK now, and it now gives me the answer in that box. Now, on the other side, we may want to use VLOOK where we want to return a value between a range. In this instance with sales, I'd have a sales table which tells me, based upon my sales target, what bonus I'm going to get. But my values wouldn't always necessarily be these exact numbers. And as you can see, somebody has made sales of 450, and it's between these ranges. Okay, so it didn't quite make 500, so it's going to get the sales target for 100. In this instance, 1125 hasn't made the 2000 sales target, so it should return the one for 1000, which should be 300. And if you look at the VLOOKUP broken up here, very much the same as last time. You can see VLOOKUP is looking up R2 within this range, L1 to M5, and it's going to return the second column in that range that I've selected. And true is basically saying it's a sort of near match. You're not going to find exactly 450, so what's the near match between that? In this instance, it said it hasn't reached 500, so it's going to take 100, hence the bonus of £20. I'll quickly recreate it here. Again, if I click in the cell, insert function, VLOOKUP, because I've used it recently, is there. I click OK. The value I wish to look up, so in this instance, the sales number, the sales amount. Table array, again, it has to start with the value of the sales amount in, and end, or at least include, the bonus values. Column index number, so that it's in a second column, the thing we want to return. And in this instance, we're going to type in true. Okay, we can already see here it's going to return £300, which is correct. Okay, so that's kind of where you can use VLOOKUP to return exact matches using false. And you can use VLOOKUP to sort of return sort of near matches or values up to a certain point. And that's what you use true for. But the false match, if you try looking something up and it can't find it on a table, you'll get an NA result, which can be quite useful for identifying when somebody's not in the list. In some cases you can use an if NA if you don't want to return an NA message. It basically allows you to put a value you wish afterwards. So some people put 0. It just means you haven't got a load of NA messages and you can place it with something else. A few tips just to add. I could, especially if I was going to drag this down, put absolute cell markers around here. In this instance I'm going to use F4, and that means if I was to drag that down to look up a lot of client codes, email addresses, it wouldn't change. If I drag that down now, it'll still look up the right value. Okay, and that's just a sort of a quick introduction to the VLOOKUP function. Practice task. Create a list of first names in column A and ages in column B. Somewhere else in the worksheet, use insert function, which is found in the formulas tab, to create a VLOOKUP to look up one of the people's ages. Now think about the possibilities if you have lots of columns and thousands of rows, and the function is still just as easy to build.